In the dark, I play my dreams. Permaculture flows like sweet streams. I'm the daddy with the know-how seed. Green in the world like it's meant to be. Permaculture, P-I-M-P, I'm the king. That's the love in everything. Bring a change, making it last. Join the permaculture.
Welcome to episode 322 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living.
Permaculture, P-I-M-P, with soulful rays. In the Pimpcast, where we find our place.
Oh yeah, gotta get my jam on. Oh yeah. So this episode, as always, brought to you by Hickory Ridge Soap from TwoOldCrowsHomestead.com. Turn that sip into a pimp. Bam! Living Soil Foundation. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we're doing some big stuff. And the engineers actually kicked up the timeline. They're going to be kicking it up this weekend. So I'm looking forward to meeting them out there on the site and also the clandestine locations. And don't worry, hopefully we'll have some results in a couple of weeks from that. So I'm really excited about that. Want to give a shout out to everybody that's in the house tonight. Let's see here. Who do we got right off? Fed Up says, oh snap, we're back. My dog. Yeah, well, I don't know what happened. We were supposed to be out for 2 weeks. I guess we slipped between the cracks. So we'll see if I can say something tonight that'll get us kicked off. But real truth of it is, for those that didn't know, we were, okay, so the first time we got our strike and we were off for a week, we mentioned something, a lot of people call it living water, okay? And they kicked us off for that, even though I had said it a million times. And then the next time, we had a guest on who specializes in a certain kind of silver. And he brought up the name of 3 different doctors. Now, if you go to my X account, or you're going to have to go back a little bit, but Permapastor's X account, there were 3 doctors he named. Didn't say what they did, didn't claim they did anything, just said that he had worked with them. And that was enough to get us a 2-week suspension. But apparently we slipped between the cracks. So, folks, if you can't find us here, obviously check us out on Rumble. We got a backup channel. It's Permapastor's Farm. Maybe some of you are watching from there. But, hey, they're definitely out to target us. And, yeah, they can't have somebody like me saying what I say. So I was on today earlier with the Alpha Vedic podcast, spelled A-L-F-A, Vedic, V-E-D-I-C. And boy, I hope I didn't get those guys kicked off, because I dropped some manhole cover, some things. I dropped some tactical nukes of information. Oh, gee, that's probably not, I'm not allowed. What can I say anymore? It's not like they have a list of things you can't say. You get bummed, and you get bum rushed, and then you don't even know why it happened. But anyway, I was on with those guys earlier today, and probably dropped some stuff in there you've probably never heard me talk about before, but they kind of brought it out. So I guess maybe in a way, you've probably not heard me in other interviews, because I'm interviewed quite often, but a lot of times I never talk about this stuff because it never comes up. But these guys just were like, hey, bring it on. We don't care. So Fed Up, Tammy Hill, Shield Maiden for Christ. Boy, I love that name. Let's see here. Burke Spring, Frank Family Homestead, Amy B. Okay, there's a lot of y'all in here. And so if you would, hit that thumbs up, tell everybody we're live. We don't have Renewed Homestead tonight. I'm sure they're up to their eyeballs, just like we've been. And a lot of you out there, because this time of year, let's just be honest, man, when you're farming, you're homesteading, you're doing any of that stuff, and especially for a lot of you, and don't think for a minute that I can't relate, because I absolutely can, that are balancing doing a job, and you're trying to make that transition to do this stuff full time. And there's a lot of you that reach out to me. And I'll probably do a show on that in the near future. I can't believe that I haven't done it all right, on how you can go about doing that, how I've done it. And don't think it's YouTube income, folks, because we don't get paid anything, almost nothing from YouTube. So there's ways in which you can go about this, and a lot of different ways. And it's also taking permaculture methods to bear to be able to do this sort of thing. Now, I'll probably try and do that. William can't be on tonight because he's doing consultations. And if you need one from him, just go to the permacultureconsultant.com or permacultureconsultant@gmail.com. There we go. And he can probably get you penciled in. But yeah, he's out and about doing what he does in terms of he's getting better and better and better and better at it. So and he was already pretty impressive to begin with. So yeah, my greatest achievement as a dad. So yeah, couldn't be more proud of him. So anyway, William, go out there and knock it out of the park. Do what you do. All right. So on the farm front, I don't see, it's weird because I'm not sure who heard whatever in the last podcast because we haven't been on here. So we've had some sheep have some babies, and it's much later than I would have preferred, much later. But hey, it's happening. And boy, I tell you what, having a really great ram has made all the difference in the world. So I want to give a shout out to my man Dan out there who let me borrow his Greg Judy ram. So far we have, okay, one of the ladies had triplets. One of them didn't make it. The other one had twins, and the smaller one had one. Now, here's what we're trying to do out here, if you don't know already. I'm trying to take these larger Katahdins and cross them over with some St. Croix, and it seems to be working quite well because I need breeds that are going to do especially well, that can maintain condition even in these mountains, because they burn so many calories just running up and down these mountains. I need something, and I'm thinking a larger bodied sheep just isn't going to fit the bill. And so Michelle said, hey, why don't we kind of, cross some stock here and get these guys smaller? And that's exactly what we've done. And it seems to be working out really, really well. So far, all the little ones are doing great. I don't know if I can say unfortunately, because so far we got 4 rams and we got a little girl. So I'm thinking, okay, these rams, if they have good conditioning, this is how it's, and folks, I can't stress what I'm going to say. If you are in this is very, very critical for you. So when you get out there and you look at these little sheep, yeah, they're cute, they're lovable, they're huggable, they're all that good stuff. But man, I can turn my brain off too, because I can put them in a freezer in a minute. Didn't mean a thing to me to put a freezer in put a chicken, put a cow, put any of it in the freezer, because honestly, that's why we do what we do. So you can't fall in love with them. But these boys, so far, the condition on them looks pretty darn good all the way around. So if they're not real great, I'll turn them into wethers, which means they're going to be castrated. And I obviously don't want to breed those guys. Or if they're good rams, I've never sold any before. So maybe I'll go ahead and sell these guys if there's some that are good. And I'll obviously take an audit of my freezer and see what we need there. And if there's any mothers that if they need any assistance at all, I mean, any of it, in the freezer, you're going to go, just like we did with the last batch. So you folks, you got to cull mercilessly. Otherwise, you're going to have a petting zoo. So you can't fall in love with these guys, even though they are lovable and they're cute. I can turn my brain. I mean, Michelle can't do it, but I can. I mean, I can sit here and look at them and say, oh, how cute. But hey, I love you dearly, but in the freezer, you got to go when the time is right. So, so anyway, if, I'll let y'all know exactly where I'm at. So if anybody's needing some really, really good stock. So like I said, so far the conditioning looks pretty darn impressive. They got everything the way they ought to. They look really good. And I'll let them get a little bit older before I start saying, hey, does anybody need a ram? Or if you want to buy them and put them in the freezer, or maybe I won't do it at all and I'll put them in my freezer. So, yeah. And with what I'm learning more and more from Dr. Jack Cruz, man, I'm realizing, wow, sheep is probably, of all the meat out there to eat, it's probably the best in the world for you because it's the highest in DHA outside of seafood. So, wow, stumbled into that one. Good thing I love, I mean, hair sheep is my favorite meat. There isn't even a close second. And folks, this is coming from a butcher. I mean, yeah, you don't get a lot of it, but what you do get is absolutely fantastic. And you can do other things like folks complain that, oh, I don't get enough. We're a steak culture. We think maybe I ought to do a video on that, because every leg of lamb, you can break that down into 3 different cuts. So what I've done with leg of lamb before is I'll take off the top and the bottom, and then make shish kebabs out of them, marinated, put them on skewers and the whole 9 yards. You could do it that way if you don't want to eat a whole leg of lamb. You could break it down or make it into lamb sausage. Just got finished eating I made a bunch of breakfast sausage out of lamb a while back, and it's absolutely fantastic, delicious. So those are options out there. Just because it's a certain cut, you may not know what to do with it, but there are 10,000 different things, and Jack Spirko is really, really good at that. So I actually need to get him on and, talk about some of the ways he goes about doing that. So for the folks that have been asking, Michelle is out there on the porch right now, getting comfy ready. It should be on the website for the folks that are, all over it right now. And it's a good thing you are, because I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be able to sell stuff. I mean, because we do it responsibly. That's why we didn't have any on the website for the last several days, is that we're not going to harvest it. Look, there's so many people, and I've told this story before. There was a guy I knew in Louisiana raising organic pork. Well, he ended up signing something of a Faustian bargain with one of the local, not restaurants, but let's say grocery stores around Shreveport. And then there he was on the hook, having to raise all these pigs, organic pigs, for this store, or several stores actually. Well, he turned his place into a freaking moonscape, and it might still look that way today. Even though he's feeding them organic grain, I mean, it's just one giant mud pit. So you can do the same thing. If you start a business, folks, and you don't harvest responsibly, you're going to find yourself in a bind, and then you're going to be too busy chasing that brass ring that you destroy the place you're trying to build. And that's exactly what he's done. So that's exactly, when you don't see it on the website, it's because we have to do it responsibly. We got to be able to, there's a reason why it's called harvesting and not killing. When you go out there and get a deer, there's a reason for that. So we got more comfrey and, of course, bone sauce on the website, rice knives. So other things going on around here. Dealt with something, as some of you may know, there's a lot of new people out there right now, but one of the big things, and apparently a lot of folks are dealing with this right now, I've seen it on X, is there are unbelievable, if anybody out there is dealing with this, let me know in the chat. Apparently record numbers are dealing with serious electronic attacks, or they're dealing with a level of anxiety and they can't figure out where it's coming from. They have no idea. Well, they're looking at all these NextRad radar towers, and there are some really reliable people on X that are talking about this stuff, and they're describing how all these crazy weather events, some of which have just recently happened, seem to coincide, not seem, but absolutely coincide with what they're dropping from the sky, and also the NextRad radar towers. And this is having, obviously, I mean, and Jack Cruz and a number of others have talked about the deleterious effect on human health. And so I was dealing with that a little bit earlier today, because I know what the signs and symptoms are. Folks, we were attacked forever and a day around here. And I mean, seriously, mercilessly attacked at one point in time. So we put in preventive measures to keep a lot of that to a minimum. But today they had a little attack get through. Now, how can they do it also? They can do it easily through your cell phone. I kid you not. They can do it through your Wi-Fi, your computer, any electronics around you. Even there was a former CIA director talking about how they can listen to your conversations even through your smart TV or your refrigerator. Yes, they have this technology. It's out there. It's available. And they can use this stuff to play games with you and make you, but hey, that's when I get on my knees and I go to the Lord. And I'll be honest with you, a selfless plug here, but honestly, this Wave Watch helps a great deal. They have anxiety settings on here. And my diet is impeccable for the most part. There's some things, obviously, I'm tweaking things all the time. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. There's some improvements clearly I can make, and all of us can. But they're coming after us again. They're, trying to do this stuff. But look, I stay prayed up from the feet up, and you know how it is, folks. And that's why we pray for y'all. So we're asking for the same thing. We pray for y'all, and we're asking you to pray for us as well. It got so bad at one point, you probably even saw the YouTube video where we were describing, how bad it was. And at that point, they were hitting us 30 ways to Sunday. Whether through the power lines, which they can do, and through the phones, hiring witches, the whole 9 yards. So, we have mitigation methods for dealing with a lot of that stuff, and we're bringing them to bear. So if anybody else is dealing with that stuff, I'd like to know. Or people are dealing with also chronic, they're dealing with fatigue and they can't figure out where it's coming from. They slept decent or they're not sleeping at all. So there's a combination. It's all of the above, and it's a combination of what they're dropping from the sky, and then it intertwines. I mean, if you doubt me, folks, next time they're out there dumping this stuff out there, go out there at night, put a flashlight up in the sky and watch what happens. Every single morning on my windshield, even though people think we have blue skies around here, it's not blue. It's almost blue. And so they're dropping this stuff from the sky every single morning on the windshield. What do you see? Yep. So you're eating that, you're breathing that, you're taking it all in. And folks, we got to stand up. I mean, we have got to stand up and start kicking some butt. Greetings, new sub here. Great interview with Alpha Vedic. Well, hey, thank you so much, Godheart Guardian. I appreciate that. Triple Oaks Farm says raising pigs on pasture woods up here in Virginia. We're not perfect, but they bear with me, folks. These glasses are killing me. Perfect, but do a pretty good job. Tried donating a hog to Grindstone Minis, found out the hard way they're Jewish. No, they're not Jewish. They're just they observe how do I say it? Jewish dietary laws. But no, not Jewish. But that is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, and they usually react pretty well when people bring that up. So let's see what else we got on here. So the high tunnel is booming, y'all. Check this out. And I've talked about it before. We put that bag soil down there. It was a mess. And we've been remediating that soil. And that's one of the areas where I'm doing the experiments. And good night, heavens to Murgatroyd. That place is absolutely blowing up out there. So all of our experiments are working, whether it was using my extract, my compost extract, or whether it was using Dr. Will's extremophiles. There's more than extremophiles in there, but I'll just say that. And then the combination of both is putting it on another level. So folks, just stay tuned for that. I mean, hopefully, like I said, we'll have that testing here before long. Hey, here's a little something else I wanted to tell you about for all the other biohackers out there. I ended up getting that app. I told you guys about it. It was called D-Minder. D like in the letter D and then Minder. It's a really good app. Dr. Alexis Cowan had talked about it. That one and also My Circadian. So I've been doing that thing for months now. And folks, I think I finally hit the minimum, according to Dr. Jack Cruz, the minimum, which is 60 micrograms per milliliter, I think, of vitamin D in your blood, according to this app, of course. I just hit the minimum. And I've been doing this for months. Okay. Now, I stated before that farmers and those of us working in construction, we do it all backwards. We do all of our work in the morning and in the evening. And then we're missing the most important part of getting that UV, which is when you're making that vitamin D throughout the middle of the day. I'm simplifying it, but you see my point. So you have what's called a Fitzpatrick score, and it goes from 1 to 5. So 1 would be some really, really pale people, maybe fair skin, red hair, that type of person. And then a 5 would be like a Kenyan, okay? Really, I mean, so black that they're almost blue. And then I'm probably a 3, maybe I'm a 4, I don't know. I'm definitely a 4 now if I wasn't. So it took me probably 3 months just to hit the minimum of the vitamin D. And folks, I spend a lot of time outside. I'm a farmer, okay? And now I'm doing it the way I ought to be is in terms of getting my D. Now, I can't help but wonder, as much time as I've spent out there, like I said, the lighter you are, the less time it takes. But I'm wondering, just thinking out loud, if I'm a person who's brown, how vitamin D deficient must the black people be? I'm dead serious. I wonder how deficient of vitamin D, and this app, folks, is definitely the cat's me out. Takes you a little bit to navigate, but once you figure it out, it's like old hat. And I just now hit 60, and it took months. And I'm getting anywhere between 4 to 10,000 a day. And of course, your body can only take so much per day. So, it just made me realize how many people, whether you guys are in an office or whether you're working in construction and you're working inside, I mean, it doesn't matter. The level of people that don't have adequate amounts of vitamin D is off the charts. So it occurred to me that maybe you folks might want to consider getting that app. Go get yourself tested and then take it from there. or maybe not. You don't even have to do a test. Just start with the app, and it'll kind of give you a rough around the edges kind of estimation of where you are, and then go from there. But it took about 3 months for me to even hit the minimum standard of what's required in terms of vitamin D. Now, folks, I'm just saying. I mean, that's there was a time in the United States of amnesia where we didn't have to worry about such things, but we do now, especially like I mentioned a moment ago. All these crazy things are dropping from the sky, all the electronic attacks, all the things that are happening. The blue light is probably the biggest culprit, and it's the little pernicious, insidious things that get you. Like, I've tried to eliminate all the blue light in my house. Now, folks, you only get blue light basically midday, okay, from the sun naturally. So you're trying to bring yourself back into a circadian balance where you're seeing the kinds of light that you should at the time of the day, at the right time of day. Now, obviously, I'm not doing myself any favors, but this is why I kicked up the program to 6:30 instead of 7. So when I'm in these studio lights, it's only for a very, very short duration, and also the the sign behind me. So but it's the little pernicious things that get you, like the coffee pot. When I put on these blue light blockers, that's when you could tell what's really putting out blue light. And I'm like, okay, it looks white, but there's a whole lot of blue in there because it changes colors when I put the glasses on. Other things, like your refrigerator. I mean, they got LEDs in there now, and this new refrigerator or whatever the case, it's not old incandescent bulbs that were giving you full spectrum. It's the little insidious things that they get you with. And, your computers, obviously. There are things like Iris that you can put on your computers that can get rid of all the blue light, or you can buy a daylight computer. I mean, the guy just came out with one of those right now, and you can look at it in full sun. If you can take anything outside, folks, if you're working remotely, I know I've spent a lot of time on this, but folks, I'm telling you, it is of profound value with all the crazy stuff that they have. I mean, we have a medical system that thrives on us being eternally sick. And I keep asking myself, you know what? I'm almost 55 years old. I'm not getting any younger. So if I want to keep doing the work I love, I better find some hacks to get rid of all the dumb stuff out there and bring in more of the good stuff. So I wanted to make you guys aware of that. So finally, before I go into the ads and then obviously on to the latest thing, look, I got to point this out. I wasn't going to get political tonight, but I can't help it. Okay. So you had this South African leader, real scumbag. He was brought into the White House the other day, or yesterday, as a matter of fact, and Trump dressed him down right there in front of everybody, which seemed a little bit unusual. Okay, he said, "Hey, man, you're dropping. We got some really awful things going on over there. This is genocide." And then the first thing I'm expecting, of course, is one of the reporters to say, "Well, hold on, why didn't you say this to Bibi when he was over here?" Because, okay, even though it's all of the above is awful, South Africa can account for 2,000 people that were genocided. But there's almost 100,000 in Gaza. And you didn't even bring it up to him? And not a single reporter asked that question, which should have been, that was the first thing that popped into my head. I'm like, surely a reporter's going to say, well, why didn't you bring this up to him? Well, folks, I'll leave it up to you as to why no reporter asked that question and why he didn't do it to Bibi. Because you know what? I'd be completely, first of all, I'm cool. If you want to dress down a dictator or a murderer, yeah, you go for it. But I think we're a little bit complicit in some of this stuff too, or a lot complicit, because it's our bombs that are dropping over there right now. But also, you know what? I know it just came off a suspension, but look, I am never going to, in my life, I've never been able to see an injustice and not speak up about it. I haven't talked, I think, enough about it. How do you get that dude in there, call him out, have a guy that killed, 100,000 is probably conservative. Some people are saying anywhere between 50 to 100, but you don't ask him that. You don't break out the television cameras, not a single picture, not anything. And then here we are talking about on the bones of these people building Trump Gaza. I mean, come on. This is absolutely crazy. Yeah, so somebody's saying, I thought you were talking about the South African president. No, I'm talking about our president. I'm talking, look, you dressed this guy down. Why didn't you do it to the last guy? They're all murderers. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But the second you bring this up, a lot of Schofield evangelicals will start saying, Oh, you're anti-Semitic. No. First of all, you need to look up what Semitic even means. And second of all, the people over there aren't even Semitic people. Yeah, your preacher never told you that. There's a reason why you're not allowed to do DNA tests over there, okay? So I'm just keeping it real, y'all. And that's just how I roll. So if the powers that shouldn't be don't like it, you know what? I guess I'll just, like I said, doing the right thing doesn't mean you keep a job. So I guess I'm not expecting to keep this one. Or you can find me on Rumble, I guess. But of course, Rumble's even playing games like they are on YouTube. But anyway, folks, I didn't, like I said, I didn't intend to get political, but I was wondering, you mean to tell me a whole room full of White House reporters and not one person asked? Well, maybe the same interests that are controlling our president, all of our presidents since Kennedy, maybe all of them are being controlled by the same interest. You think maybe that I might be onto something there? Because I think I am. All right, y'all. Redemption Shield, 10% off with promo code PERMA. Yeah, 10% off with promo code PERMA. Y'all, I'm G'd up from the feet up, and this time I mean grounded. So if you need something, redemptionshield.com will get you squared away, and PERMA will get you 10% off. Like I said, this Wave Watch, folks, look, in every video you probably see me, and I'm wearing it because if I'm out and about, especially when I'm off the property, you better believe that this is one of my EDC, and that means for everyday carry. I'm dead serious. I consider this Wave Watch part of my everyday carry because if there's an injury, if I'm being attacked electronically, this is one of my countermeasures, and it works. So, yeah, I stand behind it. So that's why, I mean, I wore this thing for months before anybody ever even heard me talk about it because I couldn't believe it worked so well. And Michelle has been wearing down the battery on this thing. So maybe I need to break down and get her one. So anyway, Billy 100 will get you $100 off of it. No, it's not cheap, but nothing worth having is. Harvest Right's got that deal ending, by the way, on May 31st. So be sure to get in over there if you need one. And Homesteaders United Jamboree, early bird, $50 off with Billy 50. Now, I'm not going to be at that event, but I'm helping to promote it. Also, speaking of events, Alan Booker, I had him on last night, but we were still in timeout here on YouTube. So many of you may not know about that. So if you go check out the podcast that we did, or maybe we can take that and somehow put it on this channel as well, on the regular Permapastures Farm channel. Maybe we can do that as well. I'm not sure. So anyway, did an interview with Alan Booker. He's going to be doing a hands-on class. It's going to be a 3-day class, and it's going, I think, from the 31st to the 2nd. And you're going to do something of a pasture walk, and I think you're going to dig it. So we'll try to link that in the show notes. Denise isn't here tonight, so we're not going to be able to put it in the chat. But anybody, hey, if you're new to the chat, new coming into the chat, oh, thank you. A lot of people are saying I enjoyed your time at Alpha Vedic today. Yeah, so it was a joy to be on there. And like I said, I dropped some things over there you might not have ever heard me say before. Just haven't had the opportunity. So, yeah, looking forward to hanging out with those guys. Actually, I'm going to have them on my show. Just reached out to them, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right, so let's get into the good news right here. Oh, snap. What just happened? Okay, yeah. So here's one. Nebraska makes history being the first state to ban soda and energy drinks from food stamps. How about that? You don't hear a whole lot coming out of Nebraska, but boy, that is a good one right there. Look, if you're already on government assistance, I could never believe that it was ever allowed to buy candy, soda, or anything like that in the first place. I mean, if that's the way you're rolling, I mean, shouldn't it be the basics? That's what I would think. But yeah, way to go, Nebraska. I mean, like I said, I mean, that's one of those states you don't usually hear a whole lot out of, but hey, kudos to you, man. So here's another good one. Leaky gut syndrome and leaky brain syndrome can set in just after 2 straight days of cheat meals full of junk food. Okay, now check this out. The reason why I brought this article up is normally during the week. I mean, I might spend one day where I go completely off the rails. And believe it or not, to some folks, that's actually kind of recommended. Dr. Mindy Peltz recommends that. Mark Sisson recommends that. A number of other biohackers out there recommend that sort of thing. And they usually recommend just maybe a meal. But there have been times where I take 2 days off. And the reason why I'm doing it, like, for example, I was at a festival and I was there for 2 days and I'm like, okay, well, hey, when in Rome. And so I went on a all ice cream diet. This girl showed up with a mobile ice cream truck out there at Mountain Readiness. And this little girl, man, you talk about pretty inventive, man. She comes up with these incredible, I mean, it's a little overpriced, but the fact that she's so inventive and she's a young lady still in high school and she's out here, running this truck, I'm like, man, way to go, kid, man. I mean, like, she came up with this banana split with a brownie and all this other stuff. I mean, it was so doggone tall. I ate that thing and then I ate another one. And then what I'm finding out is that if I'm grounded and I'm in the sun, I can pretty much eat anything with no consequence. I'm dead serious. Now, should I do that? Absolutely not. But I did. And I did it for 2 days, 2 days straight. I mean, folks, I was eating everything that Shane had on that truck. And then I was eating all the stuff off that ice cream van. But anyway, when I do that, whenever I go that far, it's one thing to have one meal, but when you sit there and lose it for 2 days straight, man, I had brain fog for like the next 3 or 4 days afterwards. So yeah, there's a consequence to that. And part of it, I think, is like they say in this article, this leaky gut that unfolds. It's one thing your body can say, okay, you hit us once. All right, don't do it again. And then when you do it again, you're just compounding the tragedy in your gut. So, guilty as charged. So folks, when you invite me to something like that and you got some food around there that I'm not even supposed to be eating and Michelle isn't around the police, you know what time it is. I'm going to lose my mind, especially if you got an ice cream truck, especially if it's good ice cream. And this little girl, boy, she really did a good job. So anyway, here's the third one, swapping 30 minutes. And this probably goes hand in hand with the last article. Swapping 30 minutes of sitting with exercise slashes the second heart attack risk by 61%. So in a nutshell, get loose or get lost, or get loose and get lost. You dig? Get out there, walk, do anything. I remember Randy Couture, former heavyweight and light heavyweight champion of the UFC. And he was talking about the most impactful thing that he did for health was, believe it or not, walking. He called it active rest. And I think science is starting to catch up with Randy, what he knew years ago. When wrestlers would pull weight, they'd put on their sweats, their, what do you call them, the plastic things and trash bags and the whole 9 yards, trying to cut weight. Randy did it a different way. And it was why he was so much fresher, he thought, in his fights, is that all he did was walked. And he walked with the intention that he needed to shed weight. And that's how he did it. And, it was one of those hacks. But anyway, instead of, maybe you can reverse it the other way and do it your own way. Go out there and avoid that second heart attack, okay? Or let's not even get the first one. How about that one? So anyway, thanks everybody for being in tonight. With that said, we're going to go to my man, Eric Sider.
Hey, Eric Sider here with your Pimpcast tip of the day. Today's tip, the volunteer paradox. While it's true that many hands make light work, the work that gets done might not be exactly what you want and can even need to be redone. It takes a fair bit of planning and organizing to get the most out of this free workforce. If you're raising funds for a project, it might make sense to use some of that money to pay a few skilled workers versus relying on all volunteers. Of course, like everything in permaculture, it depends on the project and the circumstances. We had our big volunteer workday for our community food forest install, and everyone had a great time. We were featured on the news, and the final result looked great on camera. But when I looked closer, I realized a lot of it was going to have to be redone. It wasn't the volunteers' fault. It was just too technical a task. We didn't really have enough of the right materials on site, and there were just too many volunteers for only one supervisor. Basically, I was too busy doing the dog and pony show for the cameras, which is essential so we can get the next one going, but it meant I wasn't available to supervise the work that was being done. Nothing is fatal, of course, and we all learned a lot of good lessons for the next one. It's just something you need to be aware of when you get involved in group projects, especially involving volunteers. And just like Bill Mollison always said, there is no free lunch in nature. You're paying one way or the other. You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Eric Sider. If you're in need of permaculture t-shirts or remote permaculture consultation and design, head over to ericsider.com. For those in the Sacramento area, or you want to Stay up to date with our community food forest. Check out my permaculture community group, permaculturefairoaks.org.
That's my dog right there, and I fully concur. And 9 times out of 10, it's really not the volunteers' fault. I mean, at least from where I'm standing, and I think Eric agrees as well. People come out with the best of intentions a lot of times, or some kind of come out for the party or the social gathering that they think it's going to be. But generally, folks come out there, and unless it is absolutely positively prime example, the one we did this a couple of weekends ago on the site out there near the river, everything went light years better than it did the first time out there. Well, part of it is some of the folks I was working with, that were supposed to help organize, the coordination wasn't right. Everything when you have volunteers out there, folks, you have got to be on top of it. They mean well, but we had a lot of things going, places maybe they shouldn't have been, by and large, most of it got put in the places it ought to go, but there were several things that didn't go where they should have gone, and that was on us. So it was poor management from the very beginning, because a lot of volunteers mean well. It's just we didn't have what we thought we were going to have. And so, folks, yes, as someone said in the chat a moment ago, it is an art form, managing volunteers. And then also you're going to have some of those volunteers that are just going to, I'll just leave it right there. Yeah. So anyway, I want to get into this one. Well, before I do, EMP Shield, $50 off with promo code PERMA. Remember, lightning hits your house, you're going to want to be squared away. And so the house protection for the EMP Shield, look, if anything gets downstream, they're going to cover you for 25 G's. So check them out, empshield.com, $50 off with promo code PERMA. All right, so I've had some weird titles as of late, and this one I wanted to call Why the USDA Hates Your Compost Pile. Okay. We talked about the FDA. We talked about all this other stuff, and I'm probably going to do more of this stuff. But folks, if you heard the Alpha Vedic podcast today, you heard the reasons why I'm all over. I mean, absolutely like white on rice on a paper plate in a snowstorm when it comes to composting, because it's that doggone important. Because if our testing proves what I feel like it's going to prove, it's going to show that if you make really, really, really good compost, that it's pretty doggone hard to poison you, even with the junk that they're dropping from the sky. Now, granted, I would love to stop the bloodletting just outright, but if you have compost, I mean, that's an added protection mechanism. So there's a reason why, the USDA and all the rest of them are going to give you problems. It's like the same thing with a mom and pop butcher shop, which is one I learned at. The FDA or the USDA would, be all over us. But meanwhile, the grocery store who got all that meat in from China, which came in under plastic, and they're back there, you got, who knows who back there slicing this stuff up. They didn't give them any problems, but boy, they sure were all over us. And I could tell you some stories, man. I mean, it was just cold-blooded. So just in the very outset, compost empowers independence. It really does. I mean, you think about what we've done and what we've shown you right here on this channel. Think about what that compost does in the chicken tractor on steroids. Because of that compost, it provided all of the protein that we needed. And if anybody's wondering what I'm talking about, look at our playlist with Chicken Tractor on Steroids on YouTube. And you'll find out that one of the critical elements, that the things that we put in there every day was basically just carbohydrates, but they derived the very best protein from the compost pile. They're eating the biota or the microorganisms in that pile. You can't see it, but they can. And with their keen eyesight, man, they're out there. I mean, they're going at it all day long. You'll find out that their body conditioning looks a little bit rougher than a regular chicken, but you're going to find out that they produce 10% more eggs. How's that possible? And they're working twice as hard. So, it's like a shout out for hard work, huh? So the chickens produce better eggs, and they're working harder, and they're eating better stuff. Well, all of that could not happen unless you had that compost pile there. So when I say it empowers independence, that's really a big part of it right there. So now, just with that system alone, I'm able to feed these chickens for free. And in addition to that, the finished compost element, what am I able to do with it? I can sit here, I can take it, put it around the trees. Let's say I'm running it between the orchard. You've seen us do it in the older videos. We've taken the compost element and put it around the trees. Okay, fantastic. Because it's right there local to where I needed it. What's another way we can go about it? Take that compost, put it in your garden, obviously, or you can stretch that compost even further. Now that you have some really, really awesome compost, I can take that, make an extract out of it, and I've shown you how to do that, and inoculate other compost piles and make myself some really, really awesome stuff. So the USDA supports centralized control of all this stuff, and composting really is one of the simplest ways to cut ties with these synthetic fertilizers and the industrial food chain that they want you on. So that's a really good one right there. Here's another one. Big ag can't profit from microbes. You dig what I'm saying? So when they got you on that hamster wheel and you're going out there buying, I remember because the Haber-Bosch process, true story. So there's a farm store not far from me right down the road. And right when this thing went down in Ukraine, well, what a lot of people didn't realize is that most of our synthetic fertilizers came from A, Canada, and B, Ukraine. So when you had that disrupted, all of a sudden through what's called the Haber-Bosch process, they make this stuff and through natural gas, and that's where they get these nitrogen-based fertilizers. Well, when that was shut down, the price went through the doggone roof. Man, I saw mild-mannered farmers losing their ever-loving minds down there and would not put in corn or anything else that required it. Well, for the kind of farming they do, it all requires fertilizer, okay? Because what they do is more mining than it is farming. These guys were losing their ever-loving minds down there because they couldn't get what they needed. Well, what if they were closer akin to a process like mine? There's no money in backyard composting there is if you know how to do it right. But the USDA labels and the corporations that they work with, they can't put a tag on that. They can't do anything with that. So living soil means no Monsanto or NPK. Because honestly, when you get down to brass tacks, when you look at people like Elaine Ingham and a number of others, you'll find that the NPK is not as important as they led you to believe it is. Those are components, but honestly, if you have soil life, you have endless NPK, and you'll keep it forever if you just don't do anything stupid. And when I say stupid, putting some anything they offer, okay? Be as decentralized as you possibly can. And also think about it, compost threatens their narrative. They tell you that restoring land takes chemicals and it takes decades, all right? Well, a hot composting process or a thermophilic composting process, same thing. It proves that these things can unfold in months. And if you doubt me, well, what do you think we're doing down there on that project by the river? Okay, that didn't take years. That's taking months. And yeah, I already had some really awesome compost, and I'm making compost pretty much all year long. So it didn't take years, and you didn't need them. So you think there's maybe some interest out there that want to make sure that what I'm doing out there doesn't see the light of day? You better believe it. So food safety laws target compost. I got to be careful how to say that. The Food Safety Modernization Act, to a certain extent, and I got this written down, rules like the FSMA, they make it harder for small growers to use compost on food crops. Even though it's ancient, safe, and effective, but you think the big boys are you think they're messing with them about that? Think about this, y'all. Manure is heavily regulated when it comes from your farm, right? But it isn't when it comes from a confined animal from a CAFO house, okay? Your backyard poop is treated like nuclear waste, like biohazards, but the stuff coming from a factory farm isn't? You think that might be a little bit backwards? You think, I know there's been overtures about getting Joel in at the USDA, but that's all it's been. Because if you get Joel over there, maybe you'd have some common sense in there, but they can't have that. Because honestly, they're going to find out a lot of this stuff is just plain backwards. See, they push sterile soil and products instead of figuring out how to bring life to the soil. It's 180 degrees out of phase with what we're doing right now. What I'm doing and what a lot of us are doing in this space is decentralized farming. That's exactly what it is. That's really what permaculture is. It's decentralized, which is a lot of the reasons why I didn't get myself mixed up in a lot of these groups that were talking about soil remediation out here. It didn't take me long to realize a lot of them had no idea what they were even talking about. At zero training, they had learned they heard biochar would solve everything. And meanwhile, they don't know anything about biochar. Okay. So they push all these sterile components, but meanwhile, you're bringing something to bear, this life in there that can do incredible things in that soil. And think about it, composting doesn't need grants or subsidies. Now, that's dangerous to the powers that shouldn't be. Think about that. How many farmers out there are basically sitting on land, doing nothing with it, or planting something that probably shouldn't even be there in the first place, simply because they get some kind of subsidy or grant? Most of the farmers, I'll be honest with you, I belonged to a couple of the farming groups around here, and of course I've extricated myself from those, because I'm here to tell you that of all the farmers that were in those rooms, this is no exaggeration, folks, of all the farmers that were in that room, let's say 50, I was the only one that didn't take grants or subsidies. Now, I don't have a problem. Look, if they're giving away free money, you're crazy not to take it, like Dave Ramsey says. But I'll put it this way, their farms could not survive without those grants. And in fact, with a lot of them being stricken right now, let's see how many farmers are going to stay in business in these mountains. Because honestly, of the 50 farmers that were in that room, I swear I was the only one that didn't have to have a grant to be profitable. All the rest of them, when they would say, well, this about my chickens, I would tell them, well, hey, try this method. It's called the chicken tractor on steroids. Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. When you get down to brass tacks, they're just plain lazy, okay? They didn't want to do the work. So don't tell me you can't grow chickens or you can't grow eggs. No, they needed the grant. They needed the subsidy. Otherwise, they could not survive. And that's the bottom line. Folks, I'm telling you, if they got rid of the subsidies tomorrow, there'd be a whole lot of farmers in the poorhouse. I'm dead serious. But composting doesn't rely on any of that stuff. I mean, it's about as grassroots and affordable. You're using scraps, which is exactly what you're doing. And you're using all the things that people in most systems would throw away. But you're taking this, what they think is refuse, and you're using it to make something that is absolutely brown gold. Look, Big Ag needs dirt to sell you. Wait, how did I write this here? Big Ag needs dead dirt to sell you life in a bottle is really how I put it. Okay. That's really a post that I ought to put on X. I mean, how do I even put this in the way that makes sense? At the end of the day, when you're producing all of your fertility at your place, or you're getting inputs from places around you, and you're making that compost, you're making that extract, you're doing all these things, guess what? All that stuff that they got on the shelf at Tractor Supply, it ain't going nowhere. I don't need it. I don't use it. I don't have to. Now, if you're a person who's on that chain, yeah, you can keep doing it if you want to, but you could easily get off. Is it going to take you a year, maybe 2 to make that transition? Yeah, in some cases, possibly, but I never got myself on it. So you can also make that transition. And at the end of the day, by doing this, you're actually saving money by doing this. But what some people call compost and what I call compost are two very different things, which is why I'm seeking to do an in-person compost class where it's very comprehensive, where we build a pile. I show you piles in different varying stages of decomposition. And, being able to show you what it smells like, what it looks like, how does it feel? Because all of those things are important in determining how good you have compost. And folks, you can learn it just by watching the videos that we put out there. So many of us right now are having a hard enough time putting bread on the table. And if you're one of those people that said, look, I'm going to start growing my own food. Well, I got news for you. If you're going to grow chickens the standard way, you're not money ahead, but you do have the satisfaction of knowing that, okay, those eggs came from my chickens. Did you save any money? Probably not. Not unless you're using some of the methods we taught you. Or same thing with your garden. You're thinking, okay, man, all this time I put in out here doing this, and this. And how much did you spend on inputs? Nobody ever figures that stuff up, but you should. How much time did you put in it? And our new garden goes on the old garden. I told you before, folks, I don't weed anything. Okay? If anything, I'll go in there and chop and drop that stuff on the spot. I'll sheet mulch on top of it and put the new garden on top of the old. And then I'm building soil at a record pace. And you're going to find out the more you do that, the more and better your soil get. The more you build the soil and the better it becomes. Okay, the more you do that. Places that were as hard as rock on this property are no longer that way just by using that method. So there are so many awesome ways in which you can go about doing this sort of thing, folks. And it doesn't require you going out there. This is why the USDA is crapping on people like us. They don't want you to know that you don't. Compost, I'll say it better. A wise man once said, all of the world's problems can be solved in a garden. That guy was Jeff Lawton. And he was right. And really the backbone to a lot of this stuff is composting. That's why I've been talking so much about it, folks. I've been weaving something of a tapestry over the last several months. Keep going on and on and on and on and on about compost because I'm seeing the results of what's happening on these projects we're working on. And by and large, we're realizing, oh, good night. Just by using our compost and then also Dr. Will stuff, which essentially you could almost call it compost in a box, kind of. By combining those two, we are able to hit a finish line in a way that is absolutely blowing my mind. We don't have any pest problems. We don't have any issues at all. Now it's not to say, and then even despite the fact that they are dropping this crap in a level that I've never seen before, playing games with the weather in a way that I've never seen before in my life. And we're still moving the needle in a positive direction. Told me months ago that, man, I really got to start encouraging people to learn how to make compost. So watch the videos, pay attention. William's been talking a lot about compost as of late. I got 2 different piles out there that garbage compost out there, and I'm transforming it as we speak. It's out there composting, as I'm doing this right now. And folks, this is going to be one really, really important way. And I'll end it with this. And I've said it before, and for the new people that haven't heard me talk about this, look, right after Chernobyl, everything was polluted over there. The one place they couldn't get a Geiger counter to go off was called the Lubke Farm, Lubke, I believe. And to this day, they still can't. And at the time Chernobyl happened, is at a time that they were growing brassicas, which should have been collecting all of that garbage that was coming out of Chernobyl. Well, guess what? It didn't happen there. And to this day, mainstream science is sitting here wondering why didn't it happen there? Didn't examine it. What they don't realize is on that farm, they were responsible for windrow composting. They were actually some of the biggest pioneers in windrow composting. You think maybe that compost might have something in there that's very, very, very special that the mainstream medical model doesn't want you to know about? You think there's something very, very special in that compost, like the kind they built and like the kind we make? You think there's something in there that might, forgive my use of the word, but transmute the nasty things that are happening out there? You think that might be something important? Something you might want to know about? The reason why they don't want you to know this stuff? Yeah, I really think there is. And I've known this for months now, which is why I've been going, head over heels talking about this stuff, trying to get as many people as I possibly can to do this sort of thing. Because you know what, the more of us, it's one thing if I'm the only guy in this region doing this sort of thing, but what if we had, 10,000 of us doing it across this country? And we still, just like Joel Salatin often says, he says, if every one of my neighbors went in business right now and decided, you know what, they're going to go after the same market I am, it wouldn't even make a dent. You wouldn't touch a fraction of what needs to happen. But if you can even do this on your own homestead, on your house, folks, I drink this stuff every day. Yeah, I do. Fulvic and humic acids every single day. I drink it. So yeah, that's another conversation altogether, but I think you know where I'm going with this. But folks, I can't begin to tell you how important this whole compost conversation is. So learn how to do it. And I think it's going to pay dividends in a massive way. And think about it. Once you get a really, really good compost and you maintain it, you can basically buy the crap stuff and turn it around. I mean, no, is that the best way to go about it? No, but if you have limited time, I mean, there's ways in which you can go about doing it. In fact, that's one of the video series that I'm working on right now. I would have already finished it had it not been for being put in purgatory for a little while. Well, anyway, folks, I hope that was a blessing to you. I want to thank everybody for coming in the chat. I see Zeg just jumped in. I just now see your everybody weighing in there. Hopefully this stuff was a blessing to you, folks. My voice is a little bit shot because I did a podcast. I usually don't talk this much in the course of a day. But I did a podcast earlier with, like I said, Alpha Vedic, and I was on quite a while, and I yapped a little bit longer than I ordinarily would in the course of a day. So hopefully this stuff was a blessing to y'all. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Until next time, stay alert, stay alive.
The knowledge rings, roots that run deep, wisdom from soul, permaculture dreams. Let the ideas unfold. I'm moving with the truth. Feeling nature's groove. Who's got the answers? All we need to do, listen to the earth that got us through. Let's see the change, watch the world spin. From the smallest sprout to harmony begin in the cycle of life. For the magic's alive. Tune it to the beat, feel the vibe and thrive. True.